Explores the history of this vast ocean and the community within it. It's published by Harper. I'm very pleased to welcome Simon Winchester back to our show. And Simon, that has to be one of the longest subtitles in the history of literature.
It's extraordinary. It's almost longer than the book. But it's all to do, apparently, it's nothing to do with me, for a start. For me, it was Pacific, the ocean of the future. But the editor and the marketing people say, well, it's important for Google searches.
I always taught in high school that Balboa named it the Pacific Ocean because it looked calm when he first saw it in Panama. But didn't he just call it the South Sea?
Balboa did, but it was Magellan that called it the Pacific. And then, when Magellan sailed into the ocean through the Strait of Magellan, it was calm. He said, Mare Pacifico.
Well, he saw it on a calm day. The Pacific is generally calm.
Yes, he was falsely advertised, I think, because it's not a Pacific Ocean, at least in political terms, it's not.
And then in one of his more famous poems, Keats credited Stout Cortez.
I know, isn't that extraordinary? And the following morning, he showed it to his mentor and said, Stout Cortez, silent upon a peak in Darien. And his mentor said, no, it was Balboa, so the Pacific, not Cortez. And Keats said, I'm not changing it to Balboa because that doesn't scan.
Well, Stout Cortez, 3 syllables.
Yes, but
Balboa, 3 syllables.
Stout Balboa would be 4 syllables. And so generations of school children have had this belief that it was Cortez.
Do you think it's difficult for Americans to imagine that places as diverse as California, Argentina, and the Marshall Islands share the same community?
I think it is very difficult. It's also difficult for them to understand, for all of us to understand, I think, what is a genetic reality is that this and South America, we're Pacific countries, because all of the Native Americans that live here have got came over the land bridge, even if they're in Newfoundland. This is a Pacific, circum-Pacific Ocean, long before the Europeans came.
The Pacific is where the international date line resides. Who decided it should go there rather than the Atlantic?
Yes, it was a man called Sanford Fleming, a Canadian, and he, at the International Time Zone Conference, I think it was held in Paris in the 1880s or something, decided that that's when the whole story of time zones generally is to me fascinating, because as you may remember or aware of the fact that if you went to Penn Station in the early days, each of the railroads ran on a different time. There was Altoona time, there was New York Central time. Anyway, this was all rationalized in the 1880s when they introduced time zones. And then they realized that the logical conclusion of a time zone is you've got to have a place where the day changes. And so when the International Conference decided it should be laid down, they decided, well, the Pacific is, no one goes there, so let's put it in the middle of the Pacific. But I would argue nowadays, because there is so much commerce across the Pacific, that actually the lesser important ocean is the Atlantic. So I'm being facetious, really.
But we are Eurocentric, and that's probably one of the reasons.
Yes, but I think this book is to try and get us not to be Eurocentric, because that we should become Pacific-centric.
Well, wherever you put it, isn't it going to cause problems?
Well, of course it is, but I'd rather it was more of a problem from Paris and New York rather than San Francisco and Tokyo.
You chose to begin your story of the Pacific with an explanation of carbon dating. Why did you begin there?
Well, it all has to do with the way the convention for